Pittsburgh sitting on a 6-goal cushion as we get ready for the third period down at the Igloo. 9 goals is the most the Flyers have ever given up in a playoff game. That record could be broken. We have a whole period of hockey ahead. What do you do if you're a Flyer? How do you prepare for this third period?
Well, first of all, if I'm Philadelphia, I burn any tape or evidence of the first 2 periods. What they've got to do, they've got to tighten it up in the neutral zone. That's where they've made the majority of their mistakes, allowing clear-cut breakaways or breakaway opportunities by the Penguins. In the meantime, the question will be, will they establish that physical presence that goes hand-in-hand with the Philadelphia Flyers? Traditionally, they would. It's a question here now. This late in the playoffs, I'm not sure how much that physical intimidation would come into play after 5 games of already trying to establish it.
Yeah, because we hear so much about teams trying to set the tone for the next game. These 2 teams, when they get together, are already among the most penalized in the league.
Sure.
So I don't know if that's productive.
Yeah, I don't think that becomes a factor because beyond the season, now you've seen them 5 times in the last 8 days, I think that element probably has already played itself. Not to say that the Flyers aren't going to come out and resort to some of the Flyer tactics. I just don't know how effective that will be for games 6 and 7.
How does Hextall, how does his mindset get in quickly?
Well, I think Hextall's not a factor here. He's got to put everything away and wait for 6 and 7. They just got to get into better habits in the neutral zone.
Okay, 6-goal lead for Pittsburgh. What will the Flyers do? We're going to take you back to Pittsburgh right now to find out. Let's pick it up with Sports Channel's Mike Emmerich and Bill Clement.
Well, when Ron Hextall was pulled from this hockey game, really he had nothing to gain by staying in and everything to lose. So that was a good move by Paul Holmgren. So Ken Reggett is in there, getting his second taste of playoff experience with the Flyers. His first taste came in the second period, or at the end of the first period.
Reggett has been involved in some games with the Toronto Maple Leafs and has actually been responsible in earlier days of the Leafs over the last 2 or 3 years in really keeping them going during playoff series. And you'll recall a couple of years ago they upset St. Louis in the first round and went on and took Detroit to 7. Well, it was largely Ken Reggett's goaltending that had held his team in, and very tough, aggressive series with the Red Wings. Well, he is in the goal here for the start of the third. That we'll see in 17 seconds the resumption of the max penalty power play for Pittsburgh that came when Brian Dobbin was ruled off the ice. But at the start of the period, both teams are a man short and will be for, as mentioned, that 17 seconds. Mark Howe goes back to get this. When he and Samuelson, Trop, and Sutter are the 4 for the Flyers. Quinn and Lemieux for the Penguins. In back, Coffey and Zalapsky. Here's Sutter moving up ice. Gives to Howe. Wrist shot. Pad stop made by Barrasso. And the Penguins wheel back out, and here comes Lemieux. Lemieux watched by Samuelson. Feeds it over to Coffey. Creeps right in, and a pass blocked away. Here's Ron Sutter with plenty of open ice ahead. Can Lemieux get back? As Sutter is in on a breakaway. And he's just forced off by Lemieux. Did not get anything going.
I don't think I've ever seen Mario Lemieux back check like that. He just allowed a 3-on-2 by the Flyers, Mike, because he bailed out on the back checking. He thinks this game is won and he's going for points. That's one of the things he does. But man, did he catch Ron Sutter there? Look at this. A trickler by Derek Smith has gotten the Flyers on the board. A shorthanded goal just 48 seconds into this third period. Boy, that looked like it had bogged down entirely, and Tom Barrasso went for a play that never materialized. He was completely out of the net, but Terry Karkner made it all happen. What an effort by Karkner to get in here. And then Derek Smith had his shot deflect off of Paul Coffey, but you can see that Barrasso overcommitted. Well, he overcommitted, but you know what? If that puck gets to him at normal speed, he is in front of it. His momentum carried him out of the way, and it was only because it was such a soft shot that he vacated.
Here's Lemieux moving in, but he left it behind on the checking of Karkner. Now 1 minute still to go on the power play to the Penguins. It is turned on to Jock Callender. Then across, it is brought by Johnson. Hooked from behind by Eklund, and the puck in deep now to Chychrun. Gave it up to Lemieux. Lemieux flipped one across, and that tipped to the seats, and it went off a Flyers stick, so the faceoff remains near Reggett.
I think it may have gone off Ken Reggett's stick. We're going to get a first-hand look at Ken Reggett's playoff performance. When he started his first game for the Flyers in Boston He was still recuperating from mononucleosis. As a matter of fact, when the trade was made, he couldn't play for a while. See Lemieux at the bottom of your screen? He had to close from a long way. Now, he fakes the big slash there on Ron Sutter, but then went for him at the right time. Tom Barrasso had to know, too, he had help coming from that side.
Puck comes on back, handed by Jimmy Johnson, over for Stevens. Stepped into by Mark Howe. To get this is Callender. To the back to Johnson. Over to Coffey. Lemieux has pivoted behind the net now as Coffey works the outside, but this one clicked along and Lemieux can take it. Mario Lemieux took some lumber, centered one out in front. Loose puck popped over and is swept along by Brian Propp. Kartner and Howe get the assist on the shorthanded goal scored by Derek Smith just a minute and 18 seconds into the period. 1 second after the penalty to the Penguins for too many men had expired and the Flyers had gone back shorthanded. Down to the last 2 seconds now on this match penalty to Dobbin as the puck goes to Johnson. His shot, and that one hit off the outside of the goal near the right post. Back up ice, it's brought on by Berube. Leads over to Keith Acton. Slots it over to Eklund. Eklund to drive, and that one whistled wide. Picked up by Keith Acton. Sent again for Eklund, but Kartner has to retrieve. Brushing it back in deep. Berube is there, forced off, but the puck came to Eklund. To the back, Chychrun a drive, and that one just held by Tom Barrasso, and now Berube and Barrasso. And the crowd gathers, and now a glove thrown away as Berube wants to get to Jim Johnson, but Jeff Chychrun already has an arm lock and a headlock on him from behind.
Speaking of headlocks, Terry Kartner sure got a major league headlock on Kevin Stevens. That was Stevens that just broke away from it. But Craig Berube was minding his own business in front of Barrasso when Jimmy Johnson tried to push him away. See if Berube draws anything extra. 9-4 Penguins lead, third period. Okay, here's a look at that action between Berube and Johnson. At this point, Barrasso has the puck. He has grabbed Jeff Chychrun's drive from the point, and you see everything's fine there until Jimmy Johnson walked in and tried to pull Craig Berube away. Man, did Berube ever land a big right hand on Johnson.
Now, Andy Van Hellemond says roughing minor to Berube, roughing minor to Johnson on that one at 2:27 of this third period.
That's 2 minutes for receiving for Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, it was. All right, Mike Bullard with a pass that clicked on the stick of Eklund, laid it ahead for Kerr, but the Penguins swarmed toward him. It is dumped back out, and here is Lemieux lifting one that is blocked down by Howe and worked across to Shell Samuelson. Samuelson's pass comes back up the wing to Mike Bullard. Bullard able to step by, got help from Eklund who pivots away, sets up Howe and his shot, and that one just grabbed off by Tom Barrasso.
You know, Barrasso hasn't left nearly as many rebounds tonight, Mike, as he did in some of the earlier games, and you could see that shot. He wasn't down on the ice when that shot was coming to him like he was earlier in this series. He was standing up. He actually gloved it and was able to stay on his feet the whole time. There's Mark Howe talking to Brian Dobbin. The word that we got in the press box between periods was that Dobbin's 5-minute penalty and his game ejection was because of an attempt to kick John Cullen in their fight at the end of the second period, which we thought it may have been, but our replay just didn't take it long enough to see that. He was just about to kick him when we stopped.
All right, Acton in for this draw. You saw Brian Dobbin, Bill was pointing him out there. Well, that's a rare thing and a thing that you never want to see. Any attempt like that because you're wearing razor blade. Puck tipped to the glass. Off it hops, and it is scooped up by Airy. Flipped back into the glove of Shell Samuelson, and Samuelson able to drive it back around. Robbie Brown and Samuelson preoccupied, it appeared, for a moment, but now it is thrown by Mark Howe and all the way back down. We'll have an icing call as Howe is back to touch the puck. 16:47 to go in the third period. Penguins by 5. The score of the game here from Civic Arena, 9-4 the home team.
Watch this icing touch-up. Mark Howe goes back to get it, and Rob Brown's coming on this side of the net. Watch what Howe does with it. Backhanded it right up high. Almost caught Rob Brown high in the face, and at this stage of the game, you don't know what's intentional and what isn't out there. People are shooting at each other with the puck now.
Big drive that time by Bullard, handled by the stick of Barrasso. Barrasso seems to have taken more shots with his glove tonight and just grabbed them. Now, maybe that's a reflection of confidence, or maybe it's a reflection of where the Flyers are shooting, as opposed to what they were doing in earlier games. Bullard to drive, and that one floated wide. It is Dineen dropping one along. Mark Howe tried to keep that. Pestered by Lemieux, and the puck back to Samuelson. No idea whether it is foremost in Lemieux's mind to break any records. I would not know whether he's even been advised how close he is to some of them. But he is continuing in a very offensive role here, just cruising out at center ice right now with Mark Howe as you watch this play develop deep in the Pittsburgh end. It is fed back to Samuelson, and Samuelson a shot. That one blocked away, and then Samuelson and Bob Airey brush up against one another a couple of times. Here is Howe trying to pull away from the hook check of Robbie Brown. Puck taken over by Quinn and laid back up for Stevens, but instead it's Samuelson. Here comes Quinn up the wing, but already in the zone was Stevens trying to get back out, failed to do it, and so we get an offside call. Penguins have no shots in this period. Flyers have come up with 5.
There's Dan Quinn. We talked to Dan Quinn before the game, and we asked him if he thought that because Lemieux was hurt and might not be 100% tonight, boy, was that bad speculation. We asked him if he was one of the guys that he felt had to pick up the slack, and he said, well, the whole team really has to pick up the slack, but some of the key guys, like myself, have to try and produce. Boy, we were all way off on that one, weren't we? Mario Lemieux with his 7 points tonight. An incredible night for a guy that was, until this morning, doubtful because of a whiplash that he received in that collision with Randy Cunneyworth in Game 4 at the Spectrum 2 nights ago.
Here is Murphy trying to move in, and then Tim Kerr hooked from behind by Quinn. Eklund trying to take it, but instead it's Busquets. There were some who offered the notion that Lemieux might have milked the first injury in Game 4, and also added that they thought that he was play acting in the second one. Well, you don't do that when you're hit by your teammate, especially the way he was hit. And if any of you who were at the game saw a televised replay or maybe highlights that included the clip of him being helped off the ice, he wasn't sure in what town he was at that point or what country. Here's Eklund floating one across, and this one is collared by Stevens, flipped ahead but off the back of Paul Coffey, and Coffey deals one on for Cunneyworth, who was breaking along with Quinn, but instead it is Eklund right back. Then on to Kerr with 14:35 to go in the third. Good shot by Secord that went wide. Now Cullen given a good bump by Dave Poulin on his first shift back, having served that 10-minute misconduct that extended into this period, the 10-minute misconduct for Ron Hextall. Puck work back now to Zarley Zalapski. Forechecking is Poulin as the puck bumps around now to be played by Dineen. Fans are chanting, "We want 10." They have already gotten a food prize for having been here on a night when the Penguins scored 7. Here is Prop. Fast food restaurant has awarded that. All they need are their ticket stubs, so they're happy with that and would undoubtedly like to see more, not only goals, but also say that they could see a part of record-breaking history on the part of Lemieux. Moving in with this one and getting a shot away was Cullen, and a sprawling block made by Ken Reggett. Back up it comes, and it's fed across towards Sutter. Picked up and brought on by Bullard. The drop comes to Prop, and Brian Prop's shot is blocked away by Zalapski and brought back up now by Jock Callender. And Callender just lofts it back in. Reggett watching, Samuelson taking. 13:22 left in this third period. Pass across now to Mark Howe. But he lost it, and it is brushed right back away. Ken Reggett has yielded only 1 goal in the game tonight. Leaping check that time on Samuelson by Jake Caulfield. Caulfield's first shift of this period. Shot by Busquets, cut off by Samuelson. Started back out to Mellenby. Hurries ahead with Poulin and gives to him. Back to Mellenby. His shot blocked off by Barrasso. And it is Loney trying to get away from the persistent hook checking of Derek Smith. Then Poulin a drive, and that one kicked out by Barrasso. And the net dislodged as Busquets and Mellenby went into it. Let's return to our studios for this update from the Forum in Montreal.
Mike, the Canadiens pad their lead in Montreal. Watch Bob Gainey shoot. Eddie Moog makes the initial stop, but the loose puck will belong to Stéphane Richer, who backhands it into an empty net. 3-1, the Canadiens appear ready to clinch. Let's go back to Pittsburgh.
Boy, you want to talk about a team that is on the roll. If the Canadiens win this one tonight, they will have only lost 1 playoff game so far. Watch this save by Barrasso. Paul Coffey was back on a 2-on-1. Poulin with a nice pass over to Mellenby. Scott Mellenby can't buy one. He's had all kinds of chances. Derek Smith can't buy one either. They've both had a lot of chances. Dave Poulin has generated a lot of their opportunities for them with his hard work, but not much to show for it.
There's never been a team that's gone all the way to the Stanley Cup through 3 or 4 rounds, which is what they've been playing since the first expansion in '67. There's never been a team that's gone all the way to the Cup without losing at least one. But there have been 3 teams that have lost only 1 game and won the championship. Edmonton in 4 rounds in '83. The one loss was to Calgary. The '76 Montreal Canadiens, who beat the Flyers in the finals, but had an earlier loss that year to the Islanders. And the '68 Canadiens, who had lost to the Chicago Blackhawks. 12:26 to go in the third. Our score here is 9-4 Penguins. Let's pause for a regional break. You're watching the Stanley Cup playoffs on Sports Channel. Dykstra off on a hooking minor. And so the Penguins are forced to the shorthanded situation. Mark Howe plays the outside to Prop, then back to Howe. Over to Murphy. Good crisp passing by the Flyers here. Kelly Eklund takes a look to the front. Tim Kerr has pulled away. Got it to him, and a shot knocked down by Dineen. Rebound sent back down the ice by Airy. Flyers have the only goal in this period, but the Penguins have a 5-goal lead. And the Flyers just want to try to reestablish some semblance of a solid team play game plan so that they can carry that with them back to Philadelphia after what appears to be just being thoroughly outmanned by the Penguins. You never say it's over until it's over. However, the way the Penguins have played in this game tonight, you don't sense that they're going to permit as many as 5 that would force overtime. And so the concentration, at least as we perceive it, for the Flyers is simply trying to get some of the semblance of solid play back again, something that they had in most of the first 4 games, but lacked here tonight in the first 2 periods. Eklund right back across to Murphy. Murphy looks toward Brian Prop, but will just control himself, then feed across to Kartner. Tries for Eklund, and off of Loney, he gets him. Eklund once more, back for Murphy, and that shot directed back out and cleared. 35 seconds to go on the power play to the Flyers as Kartner drives it back around. This one swirls over to Mellenby. In deep away from Airy. Tried to work one for Bullard, but Mellenby will have to control himself, and Mario Lemieux is there. Now Mellenby pivoting. Steals it back off for Mike Bullard. Can't find it yet, but turns it over to Sutter. Sutter taken down. Puck came right back over to Bullard, then over to Kartner. His drive, and that one hit someone en route. Perhaps it got all the way through to Barrasso. And it is forced right back down again. 1 second. Out of the box comes Dykstra, and the Penguins have killed it off. Penguins with 3 power play goals tonight. 1 goal for the Flyers on the man advantage. Puck angled back off, and it is turned along by Dineen, and then worked back for Mellenby. Mellenby sets up Kartner. Flip one in front. Hacked at by Bullard. Couldn't force it home. Turnaround play. Fighting it off is Barrasso. Still they scramble for it, and it's sent back out. Reggett comes out to tap it along to Chychrun. Under 10 minutes to play in the third period. Flyers make another change. They have Acton as well as Secord and Kerr out.
You know, Mike, at this stage of this hockey game, the Penguins are susceptible and are wide open to developing some pretty bad habits as well in talking about Game 6. They haven't touched anybody in front, and now Tim Kerr scores.
Good setup as the unit of Acton, Secord, and Kerr has clicked, and the Flyers get their 5th goal of the game. They are back to within 4.
The Penguins have simply started to stand around and watch people. Look at them fishing with their sticks. Nobody touches anybody. Keith Acton is being slowly pushed out of the way by Kevin Stevens, but the Penguins now are in a position to really start developing some bad habits. 2 men committed that time on Al Secord. What a nice feed from Secord out to Tim Kerr. Tim Kerr leads the National Hockey League in goals, playoff goals. That was his 11th. Brian Propp has 10. He scored one here tonight. Brian Propp is 2nd overall in the NHL in playoff goal scoring.
Kerr now just 1 point behind Wayne Gretzky for the overall point lead in the league. Gretzky, his team eliminated last night by Calgary with 22, and Kerr now with 21 points. Al Secord goes back to get this one. Down to the last 9 minutes and 20 seconds of this third period, and the Flyers have gotten 2 goals here in the third to make up a 6-goal deficit back to 4. Puck worked across now to Jay Wells. Wells backhands one that floated by Zalatsky and turned back around to Barrasso. Barrasso flips, and it'll be Gord Murphy striding back to get it. Penguins are in the midst of a change. They bring out Dineen to work with Coffey, and they have Rob Brown out as well as Airy. Still out on the ice is John Cullen. We would imagine that Lemieux might be coming for him. It is Gord Murphy feeding one back across to Wells. And Wells dropped one by Mellenby. Mellenby trying to dart in for it, but Barrasso is there to force it around to Robbie Brown. Flying with this is Paul Coffey, watched by Dave Poulin. Nice poke check by Poulin. He's got Mellenby up the wing and brings it on. Here's Dave Poulin trying to shake by, but Robbie Brown checked him. Then Coffey came by. Still the battle on, and it is turned back into Mark Howe. Howe flips, it's gloved down by Airy. Airy tightly checked by Derek Smith. Airy starting it back to Coffey. Paul Coffey just controlling and wanted to flip one to Airy, but that ricocheted off Samuelson. Spun around by Lemieux, and Samuelson got that one too. Back up ice, it's sent for Samuelson. He moves along. Shell Samuelson centers one, and that one is back checked away by Dineen. Barrasso had done the splits in the goal and gently collided into by Mellenby as Dineen walks in. Couldn't shake it by the short side as Regan had gone down. Now back it comes to Samuelson. Moving up ice with Mellenby. Samuelson forces it in deep and comes for a change of shifts, as do Mellenby and Poulin. Brian Propp's unit comes out with Sutter and Mike Bullard. Puck flicked along toward Kartner, followed up though by Dykstra in close quarters along to Loney. Sort of scrambly right now on the part of both teams, especially the Penguins, as they have been caught back a little bit by the Flyers this period. But at the start of the period, they enjoyed a pretty big bulge. Here is Bullard. Short side shot, popped to the glass as Dykstra got back, and Mike Bullard is hurt. He went into the boards hard, and he seems injured.
And in front of the net, Jimmy Johnson was dragging down one of the Flyers. It was Brian Propp. So the whistle was blown not so much for Mike Bullard's injury as it was for the penalty that's going to be handed out right here to Jimmy Johnson.
We'll return to Civic Arena in just a moment with the score. The Penguins 9, the Flyers 5. Let's pause for a moment. Let's pause for a regional break. You're watching the Stanley Cup Playoffs on Sports Channel. 7:17 to go in the third. Tim Kerr to work with Eklund and Propp. Puck to Murphy. His shot is held by Barrasso. And Tom Barrasso seems hurt by that. Was humped over there for a moment and now seems to be okay. We take a moment now for this update from the Forum in Montreal.
Mike, the Bruins are not dead yet. About 7.5 minutes to play. Bob Joyce keeps the Boston team alive. Take the puck off his skate from Craig Janney and put it past Patrick Waugh, cutting Montreal's lead to 3-2. Andy Moog, the goalie, also got an assist on that. So
as we return to play, it is Murphy rolling it around and Brian Propp there to get it. Centers one, Eklund score! And the Flyers are back to within 3. And we see even more of the Penguins just sort of standing about, something that they hadn't been doing in the second, but now as the third develops, they seem to be getting in a hole themselves. The Flyers have gotten 3 goals and are back to within 3.
Mike, absolutely right. The Penguins, for their own sake, what a shot by Pelle Eklund. For their own good, you know what? The Penguins had too big a lead in this hockey game. Too big a lead. They have just started standing around. This is a power play goal. Nobody was there at the bottom of the box. Pelle Eklund zipped his second goal of the game up over Brasso's shoulders. All right, now the key thing for the Flyers is the clock. Is the clock going to hang on long enough? 6:49, 6:48. They need 3 to force overtime.
Derek Smith with a pass that is turned back off by Lemieux. And unlike in earlier Flyers goals, the Penguins have not struck back. They did it very quickly in the prior times. They did it in most cases within a minute, although in one time with Bullard it took almost 5.5. But they answered, and answered pretty decisively, but they've not on these 3 in the third.
And you know, Mike, we talked about what the Flyers would do in the third, whether or not they'd really gamble and try to close the gap. or whether they try and play a controlled style to get ready for Thursday night. You know what? They've played a controlled style. They've limited the Penguins' chances, and they're getting chances themselves. So they're not gambling for their chances. They're just running into a Penguins team that is now not committed at all to keeping the puck out of their net.
This one is back to Paul Coffey. Mellon beyond him. Pass work beyond Lemieux, and all the way down there'll be an icing touch-up. 6 minutes and 13 seconds to go in the third, and the puck will come back near Tom Barrasso. Flyers with 38 shots to the Penguins 30. They trail 9-6. Well, Mike Bullard will be out with Ron Sutter and Brian Propp for the Flyers. Kartner and Chychrun in back. And the Penguins will go with the guys who have been the best at keeping them out. The line of Cullen with Callender and Bork. False start on the faceoff. Steve Dykstra working with Jimmy Johnson on defense. These two teams came close to having the most goals by two teams in one period. The Rangers and the Flyers had that in 1979 at Philadelphia. The Rangers won the game 8-3. There were 9 goals in that period. Good shot on Barrasso, and he hangs on again. And boy, you get the feeling that the Penguins are just kind of on the ropes, feeling that they've got enough high marks from the judges in the early rounds.
You know what happened here? Ron Sutter had been thrown out of the faceoff circle, so Mike Bullard moved in against John Cullen, and boy, did he hoop him. He pushed the puck between Cullen's legs, and Cullen was trying to pull it back on his backhand. So once Bullard got it through, he had a clear step to the net.
Puck dealt back along for Dykstra. Moving in for that is Mike Bullard. Dykstra tried to go the other way and right in the road with Propp. Centered one. Out it comes for Bullard, but it is taken away and worked back up by a diving Bork. Brushed it on to Cullen. John Cullen with a pass over for Lemieux. Cruises in, watched by Bullard. Little pass to Dykstra and a sprawling save made by Reggett. Turned along by Dykstra. Cullen steps after it, but it's Kartner. Back up the wing to Brian Propp. Propp's pass came across, but is picked off by Callender, and then Callender given a jolt by Chychrun after he turned that one back in near Ken Reggett. Along to Propp, and Propp's pass connects now with Gord Murphy. Murphy steps along with a pass for Kerr, but he was in the zone and offside. 5:24 to go in this third period. In a high-scoring game like this, we're just assuming that some of you are more curious about total goals than others as we first see this play on Reggett.
Here's the save on Dykstra, number 22. You can only imagine how many assists a guy like Mario Lemieux would end up getting if he had people around him that were as gifted as he is at putting the puck away. He put Dykstra in there for that great scoring chance. He put Dineen in this period all alone.
Here is Wells flinging one back in that bounced off Barrasso and is taken by Zalapsky. The record for most goals in a Stanley Cup game by two teams is 18. We've had 15 in this game tonight. That was LA and Edmonton back in 1982. All right, we return to the focus here. Is moving back up with it is Jay Wells. Gets a pass on to Kerr. Drops it back in deep. Barrasso out to get it. Flings it around the boards, and it is chipped further and brought out on a 2-on-1. It is Dan Quinn with Stevens. Back is Murphy. Quinn to Stevens. Oh, and a remarkable save made by Reggett. And the puck jabbed into the seats by Jay Wells. 4:44 to go in the third. It is the Penguins 9 and the Flyers 6.
The card, match to the moment.
Well, what a save Ken Reggett had on a 2-on-1 here. But Stevens let go of the puck almost a little too early. See the pass to him? He tried to one-time it, and he one-timed it right into Ken Reggett. Ken Reggett was going down. If Stevens had been able to hang on to that, he might have had a better chance.
I'm not sure if those of you at home saw that or not. I just leaned my arm up on the monitor here, and we lost power for a moment. I don't know if it had that much power that it conveyed it all to you, or maybe it was coincidental with that. Puck turned back down the ice, and Dineen goes to get it. Dineen with a pass that clicked back along now to Robbie Brown. Brown right back to Lemieux, and he drops it back in. So the Penguins go conservative here. They have 4 minutes and 15 seconds to go. I'm just curious whether the Flyers might pull the goaltender. They trail by 3. They're down to the last 4:10 of regulation time. They need to get 3. Here's Barrasso, flipping one that goes all the way back to Poulin. Tried to recover. They rule that was an onside play, but it comes near Paul Coffey, and he just slugs it back out for Lemieux. Lemieux was hanging at center ice, but can't get any control for his team here until Rob Brown comes by and scoops that one to Coffey. Tried for Lemieux, but back down it goes. And they're going to call this icing against the Penguins, so A face-off to come back near Tom Barrasso with 3:44 to go in the third period. And the Flyers, having fired 40 shots, 16 in this period, the Penguins have had just 4. We'll return to Civic Arena in Pittsburgh in just a moment. Ron Sutter on the face-off with Callender. The puck comes back to Kartner, then to Chychrun. His shot, that one easily seen and snapped up by Tom Barrasso. Barrasso may feel a little bit like he's been left alone because the quality chances that the Flyers had in the first 2 periods are practically nil compared to what they've had here in the third.
Now the Penguins have gone back to try to tighten things up a little bit. Saw that shot get to Barrasso, but nobody was able to get there for a rebound. So now the Penguins have the scare thrown at them, and they're starting to make sure they take their people out, and they're not fishing anymore just with the stick.
It is Bullard, but back up with this comes Hannon. And again, the Flyers chase with 3.5 to go in the third. Reggett setting it up, and Terry Kartner taking it there. Across to Prop, then he works it on to Jeff Chychrun. Chychrun bangs one wide. It hops over to Prop. Hard drive, and a good save made by Barrasso on that one. Pivoting with it is Hannon. Trickles one along that came right into Ron Sutter. Pinching along the boards is Chychrun trying to keep play alive for the Flyers. Followed up by Kartner. Shoveled one right to the front. And hanging on to this is Barrasso as Bullard was cleaned out of the way by Jimmy Johnson on defense. $16,025, another sellout here in Pittsburgh tonight. They have been chanting off and on. Mostly they went with the Hextall chant because this was a special promotion night for them. They handed out the Hextall handkerchiefs that were supposed to put the hex on the entire Flyers team. Well, Flyers came out in the first 2 periods and it was all Penguins at that point. And only when the Penguins got that 6-goal lead did they let up enough for the Flyers to get their way back into this one. But the Flyers will at least carry something with them in that they've played very solidly here in the third, while the Penguins thus far can carry the euphoria of having 2 strong periods prior to that. Here is Kerr. Rolling it along for Kartner, but that flicked away by Lemieux. Back it comes toward Paul Coffey. And interestingly enough, although the Penguins probably want to try and get chances for Lemieux, he's not had much here at all in the third period. In the period when you think that they might want to try to accelerate. Here's Tim Kerr trying to pull his way around. Ridden off by Coffey. There'll be a penalty coming up. They score! The Flyers have scored again with 2:37 to go in the third. 9-7 Pittsburgh.
Outstanding move by Tim Kerr. And you know what else? Outstanding patience by the Flyers. They have played a tight third period, and as a result of playing tight, they're getting chances. Paul Coffey had Tim Kerr go right around him and then stood there watching the play again. Paul Coffey, as brilliant as he is offensively, is an absolute defensive liability most of the time when he is on the ice, and here's a good look at it. Tim Kerr jams home goal number 12 in the playoffs.
This is a 6-goal advantage that has now become 2, and you can sense a lot of concern in the seats here for the first time since the first period when the Penguins vaulted to a 6-1 lead. Icing is called against Pittsburgh, and again the puck will be brought right back near Tom Barrasso. Secord the only assist on Kerr's 12th goal at 17:23.
Boy, I can't say enough about how the Flyers have played in this period, Mike. The Penguins certainly have let them off the hook. They've been lax defensively. But the Flyers didn't come out and try to win this game in the first couple of minutes or get close to the game in the first couple of minutes. It's been a patient attack that hasn't allowed the Penguins many good scoring chances. And looky here, 9-7 with 2:21 to go.
20 shots for the Flyers in this period to 4 for the Penguins.
Well, you know, Paul Holmgren wants to wait to see what happens on this faceoff here before he considers pulling Ken Reagan. If the Flyers can win this draw, maybe get one, then he's got a whole 2 minutes to work with, and then he can take his time getting Reagan out. But first things first, Bullard against Lemieux. Bullard wins it easy.
Back it comes to Howe. Shovels one at the front. Oh, and Bullard, it looked like they had a set play there. Couldn't find the handle, and Howe a backhander, and that's scooped up and held by Barrasso with 2:12 to go in the third period. Who would have ever thought 6-1 after one, nor who would have thought a comeback like this on the part of the Flyers to at least cause the Penguins a lot of concern in these last 2-12. Flyers have gotten goals so quickly that now 2 goals to force a tie is not out of the realm of chance.
I can't understand Ubriaco leaving Mario Lemieux out there in the draws. He's not his best face-off man. Dave Hannon is the Penguins' best face-off man. John Cullen is his next best. There you see the shots. The Flyers have 13 more shots than the Penguins. But Ubriaco is going to let Lemieux take this against Ron Sutter. I mean, you live and die at this stage of the game with your centerman.
Gord Brosiker has them set. The puck controlled by the Penguins, and it's Zalapski. Zalapski dumped one off. It is tipped further by Hannon. Lemieux comes on 2-on-1 with Stevens. Lemieux with a shot. Oh, and getting a piece of that was Reggett. Along it's taken now by Tim Kerr. Little tap had to be forced further by Sutter. Cut off by Lemieux and wound back in. 1 minute, 50 seconds to go. Regulation time. Flyers have to get 2 to force overtime. It is Howe right back up the wing for Samuelson. Samuelson able to fight his way off one. Fed one that went away from Kerr, but to Sutter. Sutter flipped one to the front. That one blocked off. Dug out along the boards and trying to work it further with Prop, but now it is fed back out again by Airy. Spun across by Samuelson. Lemieux steps to that one and brushes it back deeper.
Okay, now the Flyers have to get Reggett out there. He has to come on this rush. There's no question.
1 minute, 20 seconds to go in the third period. He's crept out to the hash marks. Kerr drives this one in. Reggett still watching now as the puck dumped back along, and it went through Samuelson. Karkner picks it up. Terry Karkner controlling in neutral ice with 1:08 to go. He drives it in, and here comes Reggett for the bench. The extra man out will be Dave Poulin. Puck flipped high into the air and out of play, and the ruling is the faceoff will be back in the Pittsburgh zone. Ron Finn was right at the Flyers bench making sure that the change had been conducted properly. He drifts by, has something to say to Andy Van Helleman, but he nods that it was okay. And we may have a timeout here with 1:02 to go.
You'd think that Paul Holmgren just about has to call a timeout. To me, the Flyers were late in getting Ken Reggett out, Mike. They had to get him out on that rush when all of the momentum was going towards the Penguins' end. So about 30 seconds went away with that, but they still have him out now and have the face-off where they want, except that time is the thing that it was against the Flyers from that 6 minute and 58-second mark when they drew to within 3. But Ken Reggett is now out. Wonder who's going to take the draw for the Flyers. I would think it might be, well, it looks like it's going to be Ron Sutter.
Just parenthetically, I think there was a timeout taken earlier in the game, though it was not announced on the public address system. I remember both sets of players drifting to their benches back in the first period. So there may have been one not announced. At any rate, none is taken right now. Off the face-off, Lemieux able to steer one back down the ice. This is an icing situation as Murphy is back to touch up. 54 seconds to go in the third, and they'll bring the puck back near Tom Barrasso at least one more time.
Well, Ubriaco is sticking with Lemieux on the faceoffs, and just when I started talking about that, he won the one on the other side a little earlier, the second last faceoff that he took. He won this one from Tim Kerr. He actually maintained possession and was able to turn around and dump it out. He just dumped it too hard. So the Flyers get another crack at it. They've got 54 seconds to work with, and they're down by 2.
He'll probably try for a backhand win here, as will Ron Sutter, do you think?
Yeah, Ron Sutter will try to go to his backhand to Gord Murphy.
Lemieux tries to get body position, and off of this tie-up, the puck poked through Sutter, had another swing at it, and it's held by Murphy, and then sent all the way back down the ice by Lemieux. Wide! Icing is waved off on this one, as Airy flips, and Lemieux scores! That is a record tire for points and for goals in a game. 8 points for Lemieux and 5 goals for his team. The total is 10.
So Lemieux gets the empty net, his 5th goal. Meanwhile, Boston almost eliminated in Montreal. Let's go to Montreal, see the finish.
Bourque quickly with a pass to Neely. He has to take a few extra seconds to get organized. Galley drives it in. Neely has the puck. Shoots a stick save. Patrick Waugh with courage on the doorstep. Bourque shoots it blocked. 6 seconds to go. Bourque forced out the center. Danny with the Bruins trying to get back on side, lobs it in, and that's going to do it. The Montreal Canadiens hang on to beat the Boston Bruins 3-2, and they win the series 4-1.
Montreal Canadiens hanging on is right. The last 10 minutes of this third period. They got back in a defensive shell and just held the Boston Bruins. Boston Bruins with 3-4 very good scoring opportunities. Just couldn't get the puck past Patrick Waugh. And how about that Guy Carbonneau? How many shots has he blocked in this series? In the crucial 9 seconds of this period, Guy Carbonneau blocked Ray Bork's shot from the point. The ritual of banging the helmet. Something developed here in Montreal after the victories. Patrick Waugh still undefeated. There's Neely coming in, releases. Waugh is right there. Buried right there. And guess who comes back? Bob Gainey's in right back to cover Randy Bird, so there wouldn't be any rebound shot.
Well, Patrick Waugh, much relieved man, certainly in getting help from his best friend, the goalpost, whom he talks to on occasion. But also, he was able to make that stop on Neely, atoning for a weak goal by Joyce that made this a one-goal game back at 7:31. There was still plenty of time to go, and the Bruins had their chances to tie it, but fell just short.
The Boston Bruins certainly have to be pleased with the way they played most of the game. I thought their worst performance was early in the third game. The pivotal game, their first game at home, and they came out somewhat tentative. Take that away, and the Boston Bruins had an excellent series. They just did not have the firepower. They were just missing a Ken Lindsman or one or two players we mentioned earlier, Johnny Busick or Rick Middleton. The kind of player that would get you that goal that would put the game away. Montreal has Richer, but they got goal scoring from everybody, which they've done all season long. Patrick Waugh, we can't say was particularly great throughout all of this series. Questionable in the third game. They brought in Brian Hayward. Now stands his record still undefeated. 34 games in the form in Montreal. Just an outstanding achievement.
5-game series, 5 one-goal decisions. And the Montreal Canadiens beat the Bruins 3-2. The old line is now becoming a cliche, finding a way to win. The Canadiens certainly do it again, and they beat the Bruins 4-1. They'll wait for the winner of the Patrick Division final to meet next Monday, May the 1st. 3-2 our final here. Let's return you now to our New York studios.
Thanks, Rick. Believe it or not, it is not over in Pittsburgh. It's 10-7. Flyers trail with 16 seconds left. There's a lot of fighting going on. Let's go back to the Igloo. Mike Emmerich and Bill Clement.
There's Kartner brushing into Barrasso. And Andy Van Hellemond mid-right of your screen with the arm in the air as he was poised to call a penalty. But he'll call a bunch now. You're looking at one man who will likely get one for his part in the fracas. Penguins fans, those that are still remaining here, enjoying this thoroughly tonight. One sense that very much like their team, they were quite concerned and had been shattered by what had happened in Philadelphia in the fourth game, especially with the fact that their brightest star, Mario Lemieux, had been hurt and was even questionable the morning of the game. We did not see him on the ice at all at the morning skate, but in the locker room, he made the decision after conferring with physicians that he was going to play. And even those who would have picked Princeton at the outset of the NCAA tournament would not have forecast the type of eruption that the Penguins had in the first 2 periods of this game. Although an eruption for Lemieux was one that most of us had been thinking would come along somewhere in this series, none of us thought it would reach this proportion of 5 goals to go along with 3 assists. He had just been held down too thoroughly. And Mario Lemieux, a deceptively quiet individual, and sometimes you think that fires don't burn inside, but they certainly were in this one tonight. He came into this game with 5 points in 4 games and picked up another 8 in the contest tonight. Mellenby gets 5 minutes for fighting. Chychrun 2 for slashing. Karkner 2 for charging, 2 for elbowing. Johnson 5 for a fight. And what it all amounts to is that the Penguins will be 5-on-3 for the last 16 seconds. And what this also means is a chance for Lemieux to break a couple of records if he can score a goal. He'll break one if he gets an assist. He'll break both the NHL Stanley Cup record for most points in a game and most goals in a game if he would score here. And I'm certain that it's not lost sight of by Gino Briaco, who is on with headsets upstairs. Rick Kehoe is communicating with Rick Patterson, and whether they've actually had time or the inclination to leaf through the book, it certainly wouldn't be lost on them to have Lemieux and Coffey out there just for adding a little more embarrassment to the night. Bill Clement has joined us downstairs where he'll be conducting a post-game interview. You stop to think, too, I believe, Bill, as to what we would see in Game 6, what both teams are carrying away from this one tonight. It was a big, dominating lead for the Penguins early, and then the whole outcome of the game had been thrown into question at a time early in the third when we thought it wouldn't be. But the Penguins let up, and Flyers marched back. Now your mic is open. Go ahead.
Well, Mike, it's tough to tell. The Flyers came back and really put together a pretty good effort at trying to close the gap and establish a lot of positive things, but now it's breaking down again. Boy, I can see it from down here on the monitor.
Keith Acton went right after Robbie Brown out of the faceoff. And so something that we had forecast might have occurred earlier is occurring now, and now Ken Reggett, the goaltender, is being hammered by one of the Penguins. I believe it was number 7, Rod Buskus.
You're right, it was Rod Buskus. Reggett came all the way out. Now, he had to be standing out between the goal and the blue line, if I'm not mistaken, Mike. I couldn't see it here, but I imagine that the Flyers might have wanted to get him out again. If he didn't, that means he came all the way from his goal to get into that.
Keep in mind, the Flyers are outmanned here. Now, not so long ago, this would immediately have triggered a bench clear, but now the punishment is very severe. Robbie Brown is wrestling around with Reggett from behind. First man off the bench gets 10 games. The coach gets 5, and there is a sizable fine to the team. The fine is not the big concern, it's the manpower.
Mike, who have we got there? That's Darley Zalapski for the Penguins. That's Gord Murphy.
Gord Murphy, yeah. And now Buskus has moved in and seems to be acting the role of the peacemaker. Well, Reggett immediately became involved because he saw that the Flyers only had 3 attackers out, and since the attack had become physical, he became the 4th. Kevin Stevens goes off the ice, and Jay Wells will be going off too. But right off the faceoff, Acton decided that he'd had enough of Rob Brown for the night and went right after him. Now Barrasso and Wells have been having some words, though Barrasso is looking away, watching the action at center ice as you watched Wells yelling out toward him. So there'll be plenty of fire coming on the part of both of these teams when they get ready for Game 6. Acton goes off.
Well, Ken Reggett did something that I'm sure Ron Hextall wanted to do about 8 times tonight.
Reggett is being tossed, and this will mean the return of Hextall for the last 9 seconds. Now we'll pick up the penalty calls with interest, because if you get a second game misconduct in a playoff series, you're out for the next game. None of the players involved in these fisticuffs have had one yet. But it is something that could loom for further action in the playoffs, either in the next round or still in this one. The only players carrying game misconducts coming into this game tonight were Tim Kerr and Rick Tocchet of the Flyers and Randy Hillier of the Penguins. Tocchet and Hillier were both scratched, and Kerr not involved.
Mike, since I'm down here, maybe you can tell me how much time is left on the clock. I thought when I left to come down here, there was 37 seconds to go. That's when Lemieux scored his 5th.
9 seconds.
Well, that's the longest 28 seconds that I've been around.
Get a chance to watch this again. Bill, do the honors on it if you'd like.
Well, watch Acton here. He missed. He didn't even care about the draw. That's when he decided to go after Rob Brown right away. And you can see that the Penguins converged on Acton right away, Buskus especially. I want to see if Reagit comes into this picture. You can see that oh, there's Ken Reagit.
That's when Jay Wells got in, too. Now, virtually everyone you've seen so far has left the ice. Rob Brown is going off now. Be interesting to pick up the penalty calls when they're announced here, but keep in mind that Hextall will have to go back in the goal for the Flyers. He hops over the boards and is headed that way now, and of course the fans are appreciating that. But the Penguins will have a 5-on-3 for the last 9. Lemieux was not out at the time, which is interesting. Off that faceoff, he was not out. Over the din of the crowd, you're probably not able to hear the announcement. That was just for Hextall going back into the goal. No, that's not the real one. He's up in the seats. That is a fan who has outfitted himself just like his idol Tom Barrasso. Barrasso is waiting calmly back in the goal crease as you see Ron Hextall doing the same. We would estimate about a third of the crowd has already gone. Some staying around just to rub it in a little bit more. I'll ask our producer, Aldo Farnese, if we do have a public address feed here. That will enable us perhaps to hear these penalties better. Okay, we do, he affirms. And unless play is back underway and the Penguins are attacking, why, we'll eavesdrop on those calls. Andy Van Helleman still getting it all sorted out after conferring with the linesmen, Gord Brossiker and Ron Finn. One of the things that's been most helpful in situations like this is the fact that over the recent years, especially in the last 5, linesmen have been able to do a lot of reporting of what has gone on in fisticuffs like this, so that the referee, who usually tries to back away and sometimes will even resort to making notes, can get more input on making what the proper call should be. Some debris thoughtlessly tossed on the ice, so that being cleared away too. Tim Kerr will be out for the last 9. And this game tainting a splendid performance by Kerr in a comeback role, leading the Flyers here in the third period with a couple of goals. He had 2 assists earlier. And has now tied Wayne Gretzky for the overall lead. Gretzky just capping a wonderful year with the Los Angeles Kings, and our congratulations to him and to that team for a gallant effort against Calgary and for the luster that they brought this National Hockey League this year. Well, you stop and think, if we turn the clock back, let's say 3-4 seasons, there were concerns about New Jersey as a franchise. There were even some concerns here, despite the fact that Lemieux was here. Los Angeles the same, Vancouver the same. Even though there still are a couple of concerns around the league, those 4 have been alleviated. Lemieux is not out for this last stretch. Just playing it away is Dykstra as the clock bleeds down to its end. And the final score in this game tonight from Civic Arena in Pittsburgh, the Penguins 10, the Flyers 7. The Penguins have taken a 3-2 lead in this best-of-7 series, which goes back to Philadelphia for Game 6 2 nights from now. Let's return to our studios.
Thanks, Mike. I'm Lee Zeidman along with Dave Maloney. We'll have the complete Stanley Cup